Welcome to the RealTrending Podcast, where we speak to the brightest minds in real estate about leadership, business growth, trends, and strategy. I'm your host, Tracy Velt. I'm the Senior Director of Data and Content for HW Media, which includes HousingWire and RealTrends. And today, I'd like to welcome Mike Miedler. He is the CEO of C21. So welcome, Mike.
Hey, Tracy. Great to be back with you.
Yeah. I know, obviously we've talked before. You've been in the business for a long time, and you've seen a lot of changes. And I really want to start. I know you used to manage like the global growth of Century 21 before taking on the CEO role. So what are some of like the greatest lessons that you've learned about the industry over all of your years in the industry?
Boy, that's a great question. I mean, I say to everybody, anytime I'm out there with our agents or our companies, is I love this industry because I truly believe it is one of the best businesses and one of the greatest industries you can be a part of. I mean, where else can you make as much money as you possibly want? Sky's the limit, uncapped. More than people who go through years and years of college and university and schooling. And at the same time, be your own boss, your own entrepreneur, set your strategy, your business plan, and go about executing on it. But also deliver the dream of home ownership, right? The thing that honestly moves people into the middle class, right? They build most of their equity is through real estate in this country and even in other countries as well. And really, the emotional side of it, which is, handing those keys over to first-time home buyers or people who are first-time from a family perspective purchasing a home. So it's really a gratifying industry. And I'd say that, this will be a common theme probably, and I say it all the time, but I think, what I've learned probably the most is it's really a people-driven industry. Each one of the brands or companies or consumer experiences is only as good as the professional or person who is on the other side of the equation. I think that's why I love this industry, is because of that people and personal connection that you get through it when it's also the largest financial purchase and sometimes one of the most cumbersome that you're going to make in a lifetime. So it really is a people-driven industry. Which I think we've learned certainly over the last couple of years through the pandemic and COVID and a lot of the transformation that's happened in the industry. And that's kind of one of my biggest takeaways. It's one of the things that, I feel like is the key component to any organization or to, any company or any small business is really the people who are part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that you have a reputation of being kind of your calling card, being excellent at kind of driving growth and building those relationships to drive that growth. So I wanted to find out, what are some of the initiatives that Century 21 has this year to really continue to drive growth?
Yeah, I mean, we just sat down just last week, Tracy, starting to plan out 2024. One of the things in the real estate business is like, and probably any business, right, is you always have to be growing. You always have to have an eye and a focus on growth. And, one of the things that's been on our card for the last 3 years is really bringing in new companies to the Century 21 system. And, quite candidly, this year, and I said this at our conference, our goal here domestically was to bring in 75 new companies into the Century 21 system. And that, whether that be an entrepreneur in a local marketplace that is looking for something new to grow their business, or whether it be one of our existing customers looking at consolidating and growing horizontally through a merger acquisition, right? Our goal for our company was 75 new companies, or for our domestic group was 75 new companies. We actually challenged all of our global partners just in Rome at the end of the last year to do the same thing, to have that same type of focus, to set a big goal for themselves, because, growth obviously comes from a franchising perspective through bringing on brand new companies who, then go and represent your brand well. Now, the toughest part of that is making sure that you're aligning with the right companies, right? The right companies, the right entrepreneurs who have the same mission, the same vision, the same kind of mindset that you have, because, in our world, like, we are only as good as every Century 21 agent who holds our card in a marketplace, or every Century 21 broker who flies our flag and has, the sign up on their building space. So it's really a matter of trying to pick the right person to grow with, who is growth minded and has the consumer and that consumer focus front and center, because those are the ones who resonate with us and quite candidly have the biggest opportunity for growth inside of our Century 21 brand.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously Century 21 is a part of Anywhere, and there are several brands under that umbrella. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about how you really define your value proposition, and a little bit about, like, from a recruiting aspect or even a franchising aspect, what are some of the things that set you apart?
I mean, I would say first and foremost, it's our heritage, right? I mean, in a lot of places, 50 plus years doesn't have a great connotation to it, right? People feel like maybe it's your grandmother's brand, or it's been a brand that's been around for a very long time. But I can tell you, and that's part of like what we did and why we refreshed the brand a few years back. But what a 50-year history also means is that we are the most recognized and generally the most respected in the industry for exactly that reason, that we've spent 50 years building out our brokerage base, our agent base, and serving consumers. And so, when a Century 21 agent sits down at a kitchen table and, describes what the Century 21 value proposition is, and, the size of our network and all these places that you're going to be marketing to, like, the brand stands for trust and confidence, and you don't have to explain what Century 21 is or what business we're in. And so I'd say, that's the number one thing. The other thing, and I think a true distinction, is we are truly the only global residential real estate brand. There are many other brands out there who are in many different countries. They just don't happen to have the same presence we do, and the same agent count and or office count around the globe. And, I just saw recently, I think it was just last week, NAR, kind of put out there how many overseas folks are coming here to the US to continue to purchase. And I think it was down from obviously pre-pandemic levels, but there was like 50 or $60 billion in, homes purchased from folks overseas. And so there's a huge referral base that exists there. And from a global perspective, it's definitely unique. And then I would say, the last side of it, and really where you get down to value proposition, is literally the foundation of what we bring to our agent base, right? Whether that's lead generation, whether it's our marketing platform, whether it's cutting edge technology like Moxie, whether it's our coaching and training platform that helps elevate people's businesses. All those things are only as good as the agents who are going to go out and use them. But we believe that we have what we would call a first class total suite for agents to be able to improve their business.
Yeah, and you used to have those snazzy gold jackets. I think you should bring back like maybe a metallic gold or something.
So you laugh, right, Trace? I mean, I was just in Southern California and Northern California 2 weeks ago, and when I go out there, I'll get questions from some of our old timers like about the gold jacket, and I see them hanging in people's offices, the old versions of them, and I have to tell you, like, there is a marketing play to that still exists today, right? If you put that on and you walk into Home Depot and have your pin on, you could bet somebody's going to ask you what's happening in real estate. Why aren't there more homes for sale? What are mortgage rates doing, right? It's a unique qualifier that gets the conversation started. The other end of that is if you went to Japan or you went to, Mexico or some of our other countries around the globe, and I'd say a majority of them, they still wear that gold jacket pretty proudly because it is a great marketing tool. Here in the US, we've evolved, but that's a whole different story.
Maybe some metallic gold bomber jackets or something like that. I'll talk to Liz. We like fashion, so we'll talk.
I'm with you.
Oh, so I'm going to switch this in to a more personal, kind of mode here. And I've talked to a lot of brokers and C-level executives, and they're all entrepreneurs. And what I notice is that they all kind of have a lot of aha moments, but there are usually a couple of them that really stick out, where they changed a business practice, or they changed themselves, or they took a new position, or whatever it might be, that really impacted them going forward. So for you, what was that one or two aha moments that really impacted you the most?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think there's a couple for me. I mean, one of it, and I think we in this industry tend to get wrapped up in this a lot, is that I believe that less is actually more. I was at one of our Anywhere strategy meetings, not this summer, but the summer before. And one of our board members who was on a panel said to me, and I think this is really kind of key to anybody's focus and success, is that your to don't list should be a lot longer than your to-do list. And I think, one of the things for me and my team, as we've had some very good growth success over the last 2 years, is really getting intentional about where we had the opportunity for the biggest movement and really focusing the team around those opportunities. So, I think in this space, we tend to want to be everything to everyone. And even from an agent perspective, right? There's generally, 3 or 4 types of sales folks, sales professionals out there. And what it is trying to stay focused on really the core of what makes you successful. And so, if you're a prospector, it's really spending a lot of your time prospecting and making sure that you're improving your skills and the tools that you have to prospect or door knock or phone call. If you're a networker, it's the same thing. It's really staying focused and true to who you are and what you're doing, and stick to that plan and not trying to be everything to everyone. And I think, again, in real estate, we try to be everything to everyone. When you have a big global brand like C21, you have agents who do farm and ag, they do commercial, they do fine homes and estates. They're all over the spectrum. And so what we really want to do from a real estate perspective, and where we really turn the corner, I think, is really being intentional about what we're trying to accomplish, and focusing the entire team in that direction, letting them build their strategies around how they'll help support that, but really making that, to-do list really sharp, and not necessarily worrying about all the other things that, seem fun, seem cool, seem like we need to do them, but that, really aren't going to move the needle.
Yeah, I can't remember who said it. Somebody said if you have more than 3 priorities, you don't have any priorities.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah, so maybe it was Jim Collins. I can't remember for
Yeah.
sure. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what you see as the future of real estate. I asked a question, I sent you a question about artificial intelligence, but before we really get into that, what are some of the biggest trends that you're seeing that you think will be really important in the next couple of years?
I mean, look, I no matter how much we try to get away from this, or how much we think about Chat GPT or AI or all the cool things that technology brings to this business, I do think, for certainly my lifetime, that the trend in real estate, the agents and the professionals who are going to be most successful are those who truly center in on the customer and provide an amazing experience. I mean, we've probably talked about this before. I say it all the time, Tracy, but there's a lot of different components, somewhere up along the lines of 180 different steps, from the time that somebody sees a home, on their mobile phone, to the time they get the keys in the process. And I think as real estate professionals, honestly, real estate professionals and our industry gets a bad rap a lot of the time because, people, it's a cumbersome process, and people sometimes leave that process dissatisfied because of, maybe something that was outside of our control in the mortgage process, or at the closing table, or, with the home inspection or the appraisal, or all these different components. And I do believe that we as real estate professionals, and I've seen this over my 25 plus year track record in the brand, is that the agents who truly put the customer first and the money follows later on down the road are the ones who have the longest, or I should say the biggest longevity in our system. They have the most loyalty, and they get the most repeat and referral business. In fact, The great ones, honestly, don't even have to prospect or network or do any of those things anymore because of how they're viewed in the market and how much business comes their way through the way that they've, kind of taken care of their customer. Now, there are, as you mentioned, through AI and certainly technology, a bunch of great and interesting ways that I think will make sales professionals more effective and more efficient so that they can spend more time, delivering those great experiences to their customers and really working on their service. But again, I think that's the one constant that will remain. I mean, Tracy, the one example I give is, the whole iBuying, right? I mean, iBuying seemed super smart back in COVID and, maybe even before it, and everybody was all over it and everybody was jumping in and trying to do it. And now it seems like almost everyone has exited the marketplace because, at the end of the day, they need a true professional and a human being who's going to help them navigate the process and get them the best outcome.
Yeah, I mean, the relationship part of real estate will never change, especially for agents. But I do feel like right now, with the market as uncertain as it is, you have a lot of those agents who have never been through kind of a down market before getting out of the industry, mainly because they don't really understand how to prospect, how to build their sphere, how to build relationships. What are you finding that to be a really big challenge for broker owners, or what would you say are the top challenges that brokers are experiencing?
Yeah, I mean, I think right now, certainly, you're seeing a lot of agents leave the business, and quite candidly, I think in a number of ways, it's probably welcome by agents who are truly professional and who treat this as a business, and feel like maybe in the last couple of years, to your point, right? We joke around a lot is that many agents, because they entered the business literally in the last decade, plus or minus, have only seen an increasing marketplace and don't know how to have a conversation about a price reduction, right? Like that's the
Yeah.
that's the running
Yeah.
joke. And I think for brokers, certainly the washing of agents is probably a positive thing because it will make the job of two great agents who are getting together in the middle to get a deal for their consumer to the finish line a little bit easier. That said, I think for me, and what I hear a lot from our broker entrepreneurs around the country is that the biggest thing right now is really keeping your agents motivated and inspired to be showing up every single day and keep kind of grinding it out, keep prospecting, keep talking to consumers because we're I think just in June NAR said we're going to be at a rate of 4.1 million homes sold in this country, right? So in 2021, we had the highest amount of homes sold in a decade. In 2022, we had the lowest amount sold in a decade. And I think here we go into 2023 and it's going to be even lower. And so I think it's the real estate industry, because we are so cyclical, always brings a new and different challenge to our real estate agents. And right now, I think for brokers, it's trying to maintain that motivation and really keep people focused on the little things that they need to be doing to eventually get business downstream. I think that's
Yeah, I mean, I see a lot of brokers who are taking on a more coaching role than they had in the past, and really working on that education side of things. And is that something you're seeing as well with the Century 21?
Absolutely. In fact, I asked Greg Harrelson, who's one of our great real estate brokers down in Myrtle Beach and through some other North and South Carolina markets. He's a great coach, been in the industry forever. He's a good friend of mine. But I asked him to host a panel at our upcoming leadership event about coaching and training in today's market. Because to your point earlier, coaching and training today is different than it was literally just 12 or 18 months ago. The things you have to be talking about, the talk tracks and scripting around navigating the market, the amount of times people have to reach out to consumers in order to keep them, kind of in the pipeline. And so it is all about, again, I think, I say there's 4 common opportunities in this business, right? Number 1's recruiting. Number 2 is retention. Number 3 is coaching and training. And of course, the last and most important for brokers is managing their profitability. And so, I think coaching and training is certainly taking on a new definition here in the last 12 months.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously brokerage is a low margin business. And like you said, maintaining your profitability, a lot of them are doing it through affiliated services. Are you seeing any new affiliated services out there? I know there's some concierge, there's some remodel, like some different services like that. Anything that you see trending?
I think it's probably all the above. At Anywhere, we have, a Real Vitalize program where we do some of the same stuff that you're talking about. I mean, obviously, I think staging was and continues to be an important part in the real estate business. And when homes are selling as quickly as they do and with inventory as short as it's been, some of those aren't as important as maybe they are in a more normalized market. But I think for us, it's we're trying to figure out how we get our brokers' hands on things like title, like
Yeah.
mortgage, and we do that through some of our Anywhere relationships, which helps bring additional profitability. Because to your point, like the margins in our business continue to decrease. Everybody is looking at a way to do it better, cheaper, easier, and I feel like in some ways we become our own worst enemy in the way that we discount out there. But at the same time, there are other ways. I mean, one of the big things that I keep hearing about, certainly when I was in California and a lot of the coastal cities, is insurance, right? I mean, insurance has become a major topic in our industry right now. And I think we're going to have to, as a team at a bigger level, for NAR and some of the bigger players, is really try to help figure that component out because of what's happened to prices and replacement costs and all those other things. It becomes honestly quite scary when you see what's happening in states like California and Florida.
Yeah, I'm in Florida and it is a nightmare. I'm not even on the coast. I'm inland and our homeowners insurance doubled this year. And actually we got dropped from we had to get a new
Wow.
roof. And we got dropped and had to find another policy. So yeah, it's really a nightmare for agents in Florida and brokers in Florida dealing with that. And obviously California has that issue as well.
I
So
mean, to your point, it's real. I mean, think about that. I don't know how long you've been with your insurance company. I just heard a story about somebody who was with their insurance company 30 years. They wound up coming inspecting the property, felt like they had too many trees around their house, and they got dropped. And so it's like, now you're scrambling in a very real situation for, homeowners, is that like, your most prized possession, not your most prized possession, but your most expensive possession, not being insured. That's a scary place to be, right?
yeah, absolutely. Definitely. Um, I want to talk to you about opportunity for brokerage leaders. You talked about kind of the four basic opportunities, but and a lot of times in these down markets, it's really a great opportunity to expand market share in that as well. So, what are you seeing as some of the biggest opportunities that your brokerage leaders are taking advantage of right now?
Absolutely true. I think right now, your more growth minded and growth focused broker owners are focusing just on that, on growth. You see a lot of people doubling down on the recruiting processes. But more importantly, and what we're seeing at Century 21 is a lot of merger acquisitions that are taking place in the market, right? I go
Yeah.
back to all the reasoning on what's happening in the market. And, we talked about shrinking margins and profitability. There's 80 to 90,000 brokerages that exist out there across the U.S. Many that are very small, very mom and pop, if you will, where they have, a couple dozen agents maybe, and the broker owner is also, a top agent who has to sell real estate in order to keep the lights on and pay the rent and, feed the copier and all those other things. And so we have seen a large amount of merger acquisitions. In fact, we've right now through the mid-year have done as much M&A as we had all previously of 2022, and we have something like 30 or 40 of them in the pipeline. And so this is again an industry, because it's cyclical, where you see a lot of expansion and compression, right? And there will be additional brokerages that get set up through a downturn, but also we are in an aging industry where quite candidly, I think the average or median age of a broker is somewhere in their 60s, according to NAR. And, a lot of these folks have been in it for a long time, and they need a succession plan. And whether that's going to be selling it to a top agent or a family member or, someone in the community. I think it's one of the added kind of like bonuses that's built in a network that's been around so long, is that we do offer succession plans. We do help our broker owners, our entrepreneurs, take out some of the value that they've created in their businesses over the decades that they put into it. In real estate, as you know, like there's no pension, there's no 401k. Like people work really hard at their businesses, and I feel like it's our fiduciary responsibility to make sure that they can take advantage of that when it is time to sunset or when it is time to leave the business. But it's certainly a trend I think you're not just seeing in our brand, but across the industry right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially kind of that local M&A, and like you said, walkovers with some of those smaller, selling brokers who are really having a difficult time right now with the way the market is. So yeah, and people hear a lot about the big acquisitions and that they don't hear as much about those. But that hyper local, it's really a perfect time to continue to grow not only your market share in your city, but to expand out to other, local cities around you for
And
brokers.
Tracy, I think you're onto something here, because, like a lot of these scenarios become a 1+1 = 3, right? It becomes a huge home run for the broker who is really struggling, working on their business and growing and operationally being able to stay competitive in the
Yeah.
marketplace that we're in. Because, again, like we talk about inflation, like costs are rising everywhere. And so just even to run a business becomes more and more cumbersome. And so, I think there's a lot of scenarios that are happening that become very big win-wins for everybody involved.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to talk to you about kind of inspiration and motivation. Any, authors you're reading right now, business coaches, podcasts you're listening to. Where are you looking for kind of inspiration or motivation?
Yeah, no, great question. I probably should read more than I actually do. I spend most of my time, obviously, on the road with our Century 21
Yeah.
brokers, and a lot more of it with my family. I am people inspired, to be quite candid with you. And whether that's my family, who inspires me personally to do the things that I want to do for them and together. But I'm more inspired by a lot of the stories and a lot of the cool things that the people of Century 21 open my eyes to, right? And whether that's people in their neighborhood, or who are part of their company, who are maybe a little bit less fortunate, who have fallen on tough times. And so I get a lot of my inspiration from the people who are part of our system. It's why I love being out on the road, love being with them, hearing the stories. Just a couple last week, 2 weeks ago, we had our International Week of Giving. So for our 50th anniversary, we rolled out our International Week of Giving. It was on our birth date, July 28th. We've turned it into a week. And, we've had a philanthropic partnership with Easter Seals, where we've given like over $140 million back to that organization. And so people around our network have figured out ways to, whether it be Easter Seals or some other philanthropic partner that they have attached themselves to, take that week and really give back to their communities. And even, not just money, it's as easy as going to the park and cleaning up. And so, I find my inspiration to be some of the stories that I hear and see across our network, of people who are less fortunate, and what our Century 21 professionals are doing of it. Real estate in general, if you think about it, I don't think there's any other industry that gives back to their local community. A lot of times on purpose, right? Because it's good for business. But a lot of times it's just in what they do. And so another reason I love this industry is because of how much we are literally doing for our local communities.
Yeah, definitely. And I know that Anywhere and all of its brands are very focused on community giving and charitable giving. And I love that. So my last question is just what's next for Century 21? Anything new coming up? Anything we should look forward to? What's coming up?
Yeah. So Trace, I think one of the spaces that me and our marketing team, Emery Wooden and her group, have been focused on is, social media is such a big buzzword, but I do believe, as you have some of the largest generations, whether it's millennials or Gen Z right behind them, everybody is literally starting their home search on their mobile phone. And most people in those categories spend more time on social media than they do like almost anywhere else. I mean, my kids, like who are, 9 years old, and certainly some high schoolers, like they are more into social media than they are on television or anything else. And so, we're pushing pretty heavy into that space. I think it's a space in the industry where nobody does a really great job of it. And so we got some really cool stuff that we're coming up with and really going to help our agents kind of put their names front and center. And I think behind that is kind of attached to what I talked about a little bit earlier, is like people are looking at ratings and reviews online constantly, whether I'm going to a restaurant I've never been to, or I'm buying a new, athletic shoe. Like I'm looking at what other people are saying about it. And we've tried to impress on our teams how important it is that when they do an amazing job serving their customer, they need to put it out there, because that's where people are looking at them. Right. And so, we're pushing all into that space, and we think it's going to be something that we can do a great job winning at.
So we should look for TikTok Mike coming up soon. That's great. Well, Mike, thanks so much for joining the RealTrending Podcast. It's always a pleasure to speak with you. And I wish you the best of luck this coming year. I know that it's hopefully going to be, interest rates will drop a little and things will start pushing up again. So
we appreciate that, Trace. Always a pleasure speaking to you, and have a great rest of your summer.
Thanks, Mike.
See ya.